Hello and welcome to the Human Frequency. Please excuse our absence of late. We have been dealing with a few things that have come up. We've been very busy at this time. Well, first of all, we were celebrating our 10th anniversary on October 1st. So we were just here hanging out. There's really not much to do these days anymore. We're pretty isolated from stuff and we prefer to just sit at home and relax anyway. So it was pretty fun, and we had a lot of tower busters to make, not just because the cold came a month earlier than we expected, but also we had a major gifting project planned. We were gifting Sacramento, the capital of California, which we like to call Project Newsom.
Yes, it really, really needed it. It was the last city in California that we had not gridded top to bottom. And now I would say that most cell towers in California are gifted. It sounds unbelievable. It's taken 7 years, and we've done other states in the meantime as well. It was a huge undertaking, and I would like to say that in this instance, rather than navigating, I was gavinating the city. And we were thoroughly etherically damaging the parasites of Sacramento and actually creating a pretty nice environment out of a place that was previously miserable.
Yeah, we had a friend who makes semi-regular trips up there, and he commented to us recently how it was always just a horrific place. The people were angry and in a terrible mood, and just the whole vibe of the place in general was just very bad. And he went up there
the day after we left,
the day after we finished, and he didn't even know about what we had done. And he said, wow, it was the complete opposite. It was like the energy flipped. Everyone was happy and friendly, just getting along. And it was just so much of a better, it was a flip. It was his exact words. So that was really good to hear that confirmation right after we did it. And
yeah, because tower busting doesn't just fix the weather, as we've been talking about for years and years. It's that energy that comes off of the cell tower grid that is suppressing rainfall and is completely screwing up the weather, but it actually also affects the people who live around it. People know that cell towers cause cancer, but it does way more than that. It also really affects your consciousness and mood. So to be able to do this in Sacramento, it really made a difference. And I actually noticed the friendly people too. I thought it was a nice city, which I didn't think before. So I actually also saw the beauty in it, which I didn't see before. It really changes things when you flip the energy. Things look different.
Yeah, the suppression of the human consciousness overall by the cell tower grid, that allows just so many lies to be perpetrated on the people. And when the human consciousness is in that artificially lowered state, more people believe those lies, even if they completely contradict what you can see with your own eyes.
Oh, well, this has happened many times. I mean, we know about the whole psyop of COVID being the most massive psyop of all time. People believing lies when the obvious truth is, well, more than 99% of people survive this flu, things like that. And with the weather, that's the big one now, because I don't think they can get as much mileage out of COVID. We knew that climate change was going to be the next big thing. Everybody talks about that. What's going on now is, of course, the news is reporting the opposite of what's actually happening in the weather. And it's really screwing people up. You know, when people are expecting it to be hotter and drier than usual, they're planning for that. And when their plants in their garden freeze, they're taken aback because the news said it was going to be really hot or above average. But we're actually seeing below average temperatures and above average precipitation. And they were also using summertime as a way of trying to brainwash people about the heat, because of course, if it's hot out, because it's summer, it's an easier time to tell people the world is getting hotter.
Yeah, or when their pipes freeze. In the case of what happened in Texas this past winter.
They weren't prepared. The news should have said it's going to be much colder than usual. You need to leave a drip going on your faucet, but they can't.
But that would be helpful.
And they can't acknowledge the cooling, global cooling, which is happening because of orgonite gifting.
Well, this whole thing it generally starts to pick up as spring becomes summer. And like you were saying, the weather just becomes more conducive because it's hot out. It's more believable, all of the things that they're saying. If they start talking about rising temperatures in the winter when it's raining and snowing, that's not going to be as plausible.
Right.
But when they say things like this in July and August, then that they obviously take advantage of that.
They also use that to say, it hasn't rained in months. Well, yeah, that's the dry season in California. Actually, it did rain during it because of Project Monsoon. What we're doing right now is we've done so much widespread gifting. We're now trying to hone in on certain territories, like we did Phoenix, Arizona, which at that place, we were hit by a wall of DOR when we arrived there. It needed it desperately. We had only done freeways in Arizona. And I know there's orgonite in Arizona, but not that grid in Phoenix that was the most cell towers we'd ever seen in one place. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to now restore whatever it is that God wants for the weather. We can't make the weather what we want, but by neutralizing the cell towers in these strategic places like Phoenix, we're able to bring it back to whatever it was supposed to be. And I thought that the monsoon should be reaching more areas than it did and should be stronger than it was. And by taking down all those hundreds of towers in Phoenix, that allowed that to happen. So we actually did have rain in California in the summer, in the desert areas especially, which really needed it. And Sacramento, being the last city in California that hadn't been gridded thoroughly, that was also strategic. It's centrally located. It's a perfect place to just open the door for the rain. We got Seattle gridded, Portland, the Bay Area. Over years, we tackled Oakland and Berkeley and San Francisco, make sure there was a grid there. Silicon Valley, Central Valley, Fresno, Bakersfield, Southern California, Los Angeles, San Diego, and all of the other places too, San Bernardino County, Riverside County. You can go back over years on my blog, back to 2014, and see what we've done.
And that 7 years we've gifted, we're able to say now, about 7,000 tower busters overall. And you're mentioning those cities, you're going north to south. It's like one links with another. Right. As you start with Seattle, all the way through Washington, then Portland, all the way through Oregon, and then Northern California, Central, Southern. There's just this wall along the west coast of the Western US. And that's going to do tremendous things.
Well, we've torn down the wall, basically, the frequency fence they had there. And then
replaced it with our wall.
Right, which is opening the door for storms. And in Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, we did that in 2017. This is just increasing on it. And we do intend to go inland more, and we do intend to go north more as well. If we could do Vancouver, BC, that would be astronomical what we bring in. Right now, I'm already overwhelmed by what I'm seeing in the upcoming forecasts. I think we've done enough for a while. If you do too much at once, it can actually be catastrophic. As we saw with Project Monsoon, what Tucson and Phoenix both were dealing. We didn't even grid Tucson, yet they bore the brunt of it because they're further south and these storms come up from the Sonoran Desert in Mexico. But it was absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm sure we showed some articles. And go back and watch. You've got plenty on the blog of the tremendous flooding and stuff that was going on. This is obviously not what we want, but this is just a natural part of georestoration, is that if these blockages weren't in place, there wouldn't be those things. It's because of the blockages, then they're neutralized, then it's just a big flood, literally, and then it starts to calm down. And that's what we're seeing here. We'll get to a map later on in this episode, but there's just tremendous storms coming through, and it's early. Everything is starting a month early. The cold came a month early. Summer ended much earlier than anticipated. We got our first rain a month early. We got our first snow a month early. So you can see the pattern here is that everything is coming earlier and everything is colder and wetter. And the goal here is year-round rain. I mean, we've always had dry seasons in California. If we can change this and have the fall start earlier and the summer have monsoons, we will not have the wildfire problem that we've had here. So please go back and watch the Project Monsoon videos. We also have an update on that to learn what we did in Arizona, because that is what anyone can do, especially where you live. If you don't even have to travel to do it, you can grid your entire city and you will see tremendous results. If you live in a place with too much snow or too much rain, it's not going to necessarily make less, but it could calm it. You know, the thing with orgone energy is it encourages rain. So when people say, I don't like all this rain, it does encourage rain. But on the other hand, if you've got a place like the Pacific Northwest where they get too much rain. And then down in California, we don't get enough rain. That's because there's an imbalance. And by neutralizing the towers, it's not that they don't get their rain, but we get it too. So that's what ended up happening was with each of these successive giftings, everybody started getting more of it.
It's an evening out. Extremes on both ends are just kind of so that it's more normal. It's flowing.
It's supposed to be this way. This is the way it was designed. And all of these imbalances and swings and polar vortex and all this stuff they're talking about, which by the way is also a hoax. We have a video about that from a couple of years ago.
Completely unnatural.
It's all unnatural.
But also please check out our episodes after Project Monsoon, because we lingered quite a while on the wildfire drama that was playing out, or more specifically that they were trying to start more wildfires by way of the prescribed burn. And it just wasn't going as planned because of the rains that were coming through a lot farther north than we had anticipated. So as a result, again, this is going to be contrary to what the media was harping on and on about for the past couple months. The amount of wildfires in California was far less than the previous year. So we saw a dramatic reduction.
It actually was far less. The media did acknowledge that. They did acknowledge it was less than in 2020.
But they were also trying to promote it at the same time. So it's just the typical hypocrisy that exists in the mainstream media.
And actually, a few days ago, a prescribed burn got out of hand in Santa Cruz area. And
Watsonville.
Yeah. And so that we're seeing that what's funny is that they never, ever said anything about prescribed burns until I started bringing it up on my blog and we started talking about it on this show. They never talked about the prescribed burns. Then they started putting out a lot of promotion saying why prescribed burns are good. And at the same time, I was noticing that the prescribed burns could get out of hand, and a lot of the places with wildfires were very likely the territories that were having prescribed burns. We started to put it together. After putting all that together, the news finally admitted that the one in Santa Cruz area had been a prescribed burn that turned into a wildfire. But fortunately, rain is coming in, and I'm sure it's out already. I actually have kind of stopped monitoring the wildfire situation because now we're on to rain, and wildfires are not really such an issue. And we're going to get to that because you would not believe what is in store for California in the next 7 days.
Well, it should be pretty clear at this point why the goal of having year-round rain in California is so important, because not only is rain good for every piece of vegetation that exists in the state, but it also prevents these fires from being set, whether they're started by government entities or started by mind-controlled individuals, or even the couple of very, very rare times that it's actually started by dry lightning, which is, like I said, very rare.
Here in California, certainly. I'd like to share the screen and we can talk a little bit about what we did in Sacramento and show some pictures. We don't have a ton of pictures because when we showed up, it was already OR-ish. There wasn't much going on in the sky at all the whole time, not until the end. So we'll show you what happened. But when we showed up, the wind kicked up like you wouldn't believe. And we had done a little gifting on the way in. We've already done almost everything. So we took a little diversion through Modesto. And
the major difference between this mission and the previous mission was that we had already gifted through Sacramento a couple of times, but just on the major freeways, the 5, the 99, the 80. So there was already orgonite present there.
And there's been supporters in Sacramento who have gifted. We've had supporters buy our orgonite tower busters and gift in Sacramento, and one very recently, in fact. So that has also helped.
40 tower busters. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the person who bought 40 tower busters. And I hope that you're enjoying them. And we've done most of the towers, so have fun with those.
So it was pretty crazy. We went in there and I expected there to be more DOR than there was, and I expected there to be more towers than there were. And I was pleasantly surprised that in both instances, there was less.
Mm-hmm.
So,
when we first arrived in Sacramento in 2015, there was more DOR. That's when we did the freeways the first time. So in 2015, we came through and it was certainly not like it was today.
Which reminds me also of gifting Portland at the end of 2016 and then coming back through again in 2018 from our Seattle gifting and seeing the improvements. Just, it was tremendous. So that was interesting to see. But Sacramento is also a much smaller city than I thought it would be. because we had two maps, two different maps of it, so it looked very daunting just because the things put on two maps, but it actually turned out to be a lot smaller, certainly way smaller than Phoenix. Phoenix was absolutely gargantuan.
So the AAA maps for Sacramento, and by the way, we only use paper maps when gifting. It's very important that you never use GPS when you're gifting. You don't want them seeing where you are and what you're doing. And it's very, very important that you never use a cell phone while gifting. It needs to be off and wrapped if you have one, or left behind. And if you don't use one, good for you. I'm very proud of you. But we do have one because of emergencies, and we keep it wrapped and we keep it off when we're gifting.
Just like Project Monsoon, Project Newsom was also a covert operation. We did not tell anyone we were doing it. We didn't look anything up in advance. We had absolutely no digital imprint whatsoever. And consequently, once again, the parasites just seem to be taken off guard. Mm-hmm. And that's not even something I can really explain. It's just something that you feel when you're doing it, because we've made plans before for gifting missions, and when we're there, we're just etherically attacked like you wouldn't believe. Yeah. This was a far cry from that.
Yeah, it was actually very easy. Wasn't too big of a deal. The bad areas were a little scarier, but the good areas where there weren't as many cops were pretty easy to deal with. So I think I'm going to do a screen share here to show you what I have from Sacramento. And this actually starts on my blog. This is sort of like a week and a half in review since we have been away a little while. But right before we went to Sacramento, we did have rain here. And this is the same thing that happened with Project Monsoon in June, is that it's almost like the earth knows already that you're about to do this. And also having made hundreds of Towerbusters in a couple of weeks' time, which it was really tiring, but that did also affect the weather. So it did rain on October 8th.
I want to point out that we were still getting monsoon rains up through mid to late September. Yeah. So the systems were still coming from the southeast, from the Sonoran Desert. But once October rolled around, that's when the shift happened and the storms started coming from the west and the northwest. And this also brings the cold air in. That's why it got cold so much sooner. And getting a rain on October 8th is, in Southern California, is almost unheard of. This region typically does not see any kind of measurable rain until after Halloween.
Well, that's what makes this so interesting, is that doing these giftings in these specific places for these results, and it did have the results that I predicted, has really changed weather patterns, and it is confounding meteorologists. I wrote a pretty long piece here. If you want to read it on my blog, it's about why we went to Sacramento and what it was like there. I'm just going to right now just show you the pictures, because this was the first day that we arrived on the 10th, and no plan. We ended up staying in a scummy place in downtown, which was, it's just the way it goes. We had no plan. We didn't know where we were going. We couldn't look anything up. So we just kind of were winging it. But you know what? It worked out because we were in a very central location. We showed up. We had all this orgonite in the car. The wind started kicking up. And the next day was so windy. The winds were making the news. It was actually hard to gift. It was so windy. Yeah. I predicted it would become windy when we were done gifting on the third day. But no, it started right away as soon as the orgonite arrived. So really, this is what it looked like. And, looked great. There was nothing in the sky, no planes, no trails, not even DOR clouds. You could see these nice OR clouds on the horizon, perfect blue sky. This is what Fresno looked like when we were done with it. But Sacramento was like this to begin with, which is great news. And just beautiful OR clouds that there's just not much to show for the first day. The first day, what we did was we went and did the northern and eastern portion of the city. And it was a lot smaller than we thought, but it was difficult because the AAA maps are very detailed for Sacramento. So it was almost too much map. And it took a while to figure it out, but we went and we infiltrated every neighborhood. I mean, we got our tentacles in all of it. So yeah. They were really taken off guard by all this.
Obviously, another interesting thing about Sacramento is that it is the lair of all these government actors of the state. Obviously, they don't all necessarily live there. They probably live in mansions in the Bay Area, but that's their nexus as far as their their operation is concerned. So we knew that based on how small the place was and how much we were consistent. Sharon was consistently saying to me, because I'm driving and she's getting out and she's marking the map, she's like, wow, we're making really great time. You must have said that to me like 6 or 7 times. So we knew that we were really doing a thorough job of gridding, and that even if we miss a tower, there's going to be a gifting relatively close by to it. So it's going to be like a counter grid.
Right. And we did miss some because we didn't do every single street. Now there's places like in San Diego, we did every single street. Ventura, Oxnard, and Camarillo, we did every single street. You know, in LA, the city of LA, we did every single street. We lived there. So there are places where we did that. And then there's places where we did, like, what we would do is what we call wide sweeping gestures. So if we're not sure how in-depth we're going to be able to do it in the period of time we've allotted and with the TBs we brought, we'll do the wide sweeping gestures. So big north-south streets, big east-west streets. And in Sacramento, we actually did more than I thought we were going to do. And I think it's small enough that if we had 2 more full days there, we could cover every single tower in the city.
But again, we're trying to avoid cataclysmic weather, and as it is, it's going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm pretty excited about what's coming, but yeah, so northern and eastern Sacramento, those areas, they were fairly low stress. I got extremely excited when we entered certain parts of town because I knew that there were certain government entities there. I just love the idea of gifting the franchise tax board. I can't help it. That was just very appealing to me. So when we got into Rancho Cordova, you know, where they have an office or at least a PO box, I was pretty excited. But of course, all of Sacramento, they have offices all around. So I just kept saying, oh,
gifts
yes,
everywhere.
we're taking care of the franchise tax board, giving gifts to our friends there. So actually, I don't have any pictures for the next day. I'll wait for a second before we get to the third day, because the second day, there was just nothing to photograph. So we were doing the south part of the city, the scary part,
the bad part.
There were a lot of cops.
The poor part, the oppressed part.
Yes, and there was cops everywhere. So we were cop dodging because there's just no way I want to get into it with them right now. I mean, mostly, you know, because we have very special plates on our car. Mostly they don't bother us. They're not legally allowed to, but some of them do, and they can. And I didn't want to have to deal with the explanation and get them off our backs. But there's some stuff in my book about it, you know, the encounters with cops. So fortunately in Sacramento, we did not have an encounter with cops.
Yeah, unpredictable thugs who are armed with towers all around. You don't want to deal with that.
Right. Well, we did.
You don't have to. So
we also went to Elk Grove and down really far south.
That was a nice area.
That was a nice area. We didn't have to do much there because we have a friend who already did. And this is funny because I gifted a tower down there that had birds on it. I didn't see the birds till after I gifted it. I was like, oh, she already got it. So that was pretty cool. And another one in Sacramento, right after we gifted it on the very windy day, the tower was literally swaying in the wind and birds just swarmed to it as soon as it had orgonite. So, you know, it's
that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think it was Florin.
Florin is a major road.
I almost said Florian, but that's an artist. That was pretty rough there. There were a lot of poor, oppressed people that you could just see they were really just, life was really getting them down. And
yeah, here's a picture of the jail.
That's where most of the towers are.
This isn't downtown, but since it goes with what you're saying, I'm just going to show it. Pretty nice, huh? That's their jail.
Lovely.
Yeah, but so we did that for 2 days, and it was not excruciating, I have to say. I mean, I think it's because we didn't leave a digital imprint and didn't have they weren't aware of us. That's what it was. But the cops still made us nervous in those rough areas. And it was our goal to get in and out of there and get done with it. And, you know, there was nothing to photograph. But on the last day, which was the 13th, we had drizzle. It was a little drizzle in the morning. I think they were actually confused by it. Here's the weatherman on their TV.
He was very confused.
Yeah, and you could see the little green on the radar map coming into Northern California. They were not expecting that at all. And yeah, they were thoroughly confused by it. This is what the sky looked like. So after Sunday gifting in the countryside and Monday and Tuesday gridding the city, we woke up and they were OR clouds. So previously nothing. Now OR clouds. Then there was drizzle around. We didn't experience much where we were, just a few drops, but this is a very highly charged OR sky This is a very typical result after a few days of gifting an area, is to have this kind of effect. So usually there is rain right afterwards. Sometimes it happens during, and sometimes it takes a week to happen, depends on the time of year and the climate. But usually soon after gifting, we do have this result. And we did gift this tower on top of this county jail in the center of downtown on our way out, which was really satisfying to me because I just wanted to gift the tower. And when I saw it was a jail, then I felt much better about gifting it.
And we gifted a little bit more in the countryside to the west and the southwest on our way back to the interstate.
They still had a red flag warning, by the way, which means fire weather. But
even though the wind had calmed down considerably by that point.
So on our way home, let's look at some pictures of beautiful northern and central California. We touched on a tip of the Bay Area on our way back in Contra Costa County. And so by the late morning in Davis, California, this is what we had. We hadn't done that portion of the 80, so we took care of that. And we had beautiful OR clouds clearing. And this is near Dixon. Beautiful OR skies, greenland, very healthy actually. Did not look droughty at all to me. There was yellow grass on the hills, but that is very normal for the summers in California. It's always been that way. It will turn green when it starts raining.
This is near, I believe, Rio Vista, and that is the Rio.
That's the
right
Sacramento
there.
River right there, isn't it?
Either the Sacramento or the San Joaquin. I'm not, they kind of converge at this one area and go into the very eastern portion of the San Francisco Bay, where there's this really creepy bridge, which I did toss from
Antioch.
Yeah, from Antioch into the Bay. And that the whole East Bay area just really wigs me out.
It's a little scary.
Say.
Yeah, well, it's all very parasitic.
Nice.
That's why, it's very parasitic. You've got Silicon Valley parasites, you've got Sacramento parasites. This is what runs the world. And California is really like it's sort of a trendsetter in tyranny, actually.
But east of even where the East Bay is, there are all these nice little wetlands and marshlands. And that was really nice to see.
Very healthy too, just beautiful. And OR skies the whole time. As you can see, note that it's very light blue to the horizon. These are the things you need to look at in your sky to understand the process of transmutation. So you're not afraid of every cloud you see. This is a very healthy sky in the early to mid stages of transmutation, because there's always DOR and OR battling it out in the sky. And it is even a part of nature, but the balance is off on Earth. So we have too much DOR, but this is pretty normal. You will always see this kind of stuff.
Yes. And this was a new area for us. So we're gifting entirely new places we haven't been at this time. This is along Interstate 5, I think.
Yeah, this is in the Central Valley. Again, an OR sky. It's not perfect. It's in the early stages of transmutation, but you could see light blue. If you see light blue, it's not too DOR-ish. And at the horizon here, it's not brown, which would indicate what they call smog or DOR, but it's a light gray, which is the process of cleanup.
And this is a view east towards where the valley is, the San Joaquin Valley, which usually does have that thick layer going on. So it was good not to see that. This is, I think, about Tracy or something like that. So we're still very much in the northern part of Central California at this point. So very good progress to see in the skies. And it started to get really dramatic as we drove south.
Yeah, this is a nice OR transmutation at a rest stop in Central California. And I just kept snapping pictures, and Gabe snapped a few for me while I was driving. This is a nice one here.
You can kind of see the proto-lenticular formations there in the bottom right-hand corner of the photo. That's the energy is starting to get whipped up there. That view is towards the west. So that is past the mountains and towards the 101 areas that we've previously gifted. So again, this is areas, freshly gifted areas linking up with previously gifted areas and just adding to the counter grid.
Yeah, we first gifted the Central Valley in 2015. And that's when we first gifted Sacramento. That was part of that expedition. Right. And more Central California. This will all be green soon. And yellow hills in California does not mean bad, scary. It doesn't mean any of that.
Doesn't mean drought.
No, it does not.
Just normal.
It's always been like this. However, my hope is that we will see an end to this and it will always be green, but that's the ultimate goal. However, there's nothing abnormal about this. So yeah, we had a great gifting trip, and it was smooth sailing.
Well,
Except
for the
for
most
at the
part.
end when we hit a roadblock on the 5, which was a little weird.
Just closed Interstate 5 down at Kettleman City for no reason that I could see.
Well, I can see one reason, and that is that we went back on the radar that the night before. So once we were done with Sacramento, I don't like not checking my email for days. And we purposely made this trip over Columbus Day. So there was a mail holiday. So if anybody ordered from us, they wouldn't wonder, where's my stuff? You know, it was purposely done at a time where nothing could be mailed anyway. But on Tuesday night, I opened up my email and we checked our cell phone, and they knew we were there at that point. But we had already finished Sacramento. So my point was just to finish Sacramento and get back on the radar when we were done. Back on the radar again, though, all of a sudden there's a closure on the 5. I don't know if there was a correlation there, but it could have been, because it's very weird to close an entire interstate with no explanation. And we couldn't find one online either.
So we just took a detour, and a detour off the freeway, down south and back to the freeway again. Probably got half a dozen new towers in the process.
Yeah, there was a couple of short roads. We hadn't done those little sections, and
just a little bit more. And so it's good that we were able to take advantage of that. And it didn't delay us all that much, even though there was this really dumb stop sign going back to the 5 and had traffic backed up for a mile or more.
Well, because everybody got diverted off the 5. So it did set us back a couple hours. Right after this gifting trip, I started to look at the crazy amount of rain coming in. So this is just the beginning. You could see many, many inches of rain just barreling into the West Coast. This is from right after. I'm going to open up a couple of articles here. This is from SF Gate. A developing mid-October storm aimed at the SF Bay Area could potentially end wildfire season. This is from October 13th. That was the day that we left Sacramento and finished gifting along in Davis. So that was the end of it. Here's a picture of our extremely drought-plagued, dry state of California. This is taken on January 4th, 2021. So earlier this year, huge rainstorm in San Francisco. This article, now this is right after the gifting, and I don't know if they even knew about it yet when they were writing this article. Meteorologists are closely watching the long-term Northern California weather forecast, which shows several days of moderate to heavy rain in mid-October, stretching from the San Francisco Bay Area to Redding. We also gridded Redding, by the way. San Francisco Bay Area, thoroughly gridded. Redding, thoroughly gridded.
It's stretching a lot further than that in actuality. But the fact that they're admitting anything at this point is interesting.
And they're also saying that if a wet storm arrives as predicted, the National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center said it could quell ongoing wildfire activity, help improve drought conditions, and replenish water resources throughout the West Coast. That is really amazing that the media admits it. When the media admits that it's helpful, that's when you know you've accomplished something, because they will say drought even when it's raining. But if you make it plainly obvious, like we do enough gifting that it brings in torrential amounts of rain, they can no longer lie about it. Even in Arizona, they were having drought conditions for 2019 and 2020. And they called their monsoon season a non-soon. As soon as we gifted the area and all that rain came in, they couldn't say it anymore. They had to say, wow, that was a record-breaking month for Tucson. Never seen that before, that kind of stuff.
And we had to say, wow, there's been no gifting done here. We have such a huge mission here. Gee, there's 3 cell towers at each corner.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, the amount in Phoenix was ridiculous. I know there's a little bit of orgonite around the area, but not enough for what was going on there. I've never seen anything like it. You have to wonder, if it's already a desert and it's already dry, why do they need so much additional DOR? I can only say it's probably strategic, and it has to do with monsoon season.
Definitely is.
So here in California, back to Sacramento, it's difficult to nail down a forecast, they say, beyond 7 days, which is true. They are unable to forecast weather. The only reason they were able to say that all this rain was coming is because of the work we did. And I do think they know about it, but they can't say anything, because orgonomy is the true science of weather, not meteorology, but they will not acknowledge this. So they say that their last long-term forecast showed rain, and in the end, it was mostly drizzle. I did not see any long-term forecasts for rain. However, the drizzle came when we were expecting dry weather. So, there are lies, and there's also stuff they just don't know.
Well, there was no forecast for rain.
There wasn't.
Every forecast I saw coming out of the mainstream media was drought, 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 and it'll never end. And this is the worst ever, and record high temperatures. All things that turned out in the end to be false. If you examine reality, you'll see that they're just not true.
National Weather Service forecaster Roger Gass said, "This looks to be a lot more promising. All the models are suggesting widespread rainfall as we head into that time frame." Now, they always use models. Meteorology relies on computer models, so they take conditions that are happening, which are all results of atmospheric energetic conditions, and they try to project weather based on results instead of causes. So they look at, like, in the past when the wind did this and the sky looked like this, it rained. So the wind and the sky look like this now, so it's going to rain, rather than saying the OR shift caused the wind and sky to look like this and then it rained. They cannot look at the cause.
Yeah. And once again, here, the forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, which provides long-term outlooks, said models are suggesting, so the models are suggesting up to 2 inches of rain across 3 days and possible near record-breaking precipitation for late October. Let me tell you something. Any precipitation in October is record-breaking, because I've lived in Southern California all my life. As I said earlier in the show, it does not rain at all until after Halloween. Period.
And they are saying that it's going to be caused by an atmospheric river, which is not a real thing. Let's see here. I'll just show it to you here. There's potential for some type of or varying degrees of and varying strength of an atmospheric river. That is not a real thing. That's something they say when there's high OR and a lot of rain, because orgone energy promotes the hydrogen bonding of water molecules. So you have more cloud formation and more rain dropping.
And of course, they save their most egregious lie for the very end. While an atmospheric event would have the potential to cause mudslides, especially over wildfire burn scars, it would be beneficial in abating Northern California's wildfire season, which often persists into November. That's not necessarily true.
Actually, we had wildfires into November here in Southern California due to a lack of rain before. So that's why we're trying to stop this from happening.
So buckle up and get ready. Here it is. Conditions this year are especially dire, with vegetation on the ground parched and flammable after 2 consecutive dry winters.
Well,
lie.
That's not true at all.
Complete lie.
So that's not true at all. But that's the thing, is you got to look at these things. And by the way, that 2 inches they're projecting, I'd like to just jump ahead right here to our rain map, because I'm just loving this. Every day it gets better and better. This is the 7-day outlook.
Just look at it for a second. Just look.
And this is the time frame that the article mentioned, October 19th through October 26th. So this is a week's worth of rain for California. And I have never, in the years I've been using these maps, I have never seen anything like this anytime, let alone October, a typically dry year in California.
I've never even seen these gold colors before anywhere on the map.
So this is like what you see when there's a hurricane in the south. This is what you see and it's usually localized to a small area. What you've got is the entire West Coast is getting slammed with a huge rainstorm. These areas here in the orange correspond to 5 to 7 inches, and 7 to 10 is this. Oh, actually, that's the orange. The brownish is 7 to 10, and the yellow is 10 to 15. I mean, we are talking inches of rain here. And if this falls as snow in these areas, we would be looking at 8 feet of snow.
And it's here, it's there, it's here in Eureka area, it's here by Crescent City and Gold Beach. It's so many places that are just, and this is late October, mind you. I've never seen this amount anywhere. I've never seen it in New England. I've never seen it in the South, the Midwest, Canada, well, east of British Columbia anyway. Look at all of the places that are getting less rain than California, and all along the coast there, all the way from British Columbia down to San Diego, down to the Mexican border.
Well, gifting Sacramento was obviously the missing piece of the puzzle here. I mean, we were expecting a good winter, but we also knew we were going to do this gifting. We just couldn't talk about it. So that is what's happening. LA Times, late October rains could dampen wildfires and help with drought, forecasters say. If they're saying this, you know it's a big rain. They would not say it. They hate to say that. So you could see the precipitation. We're looking at October 21st through 27th here. Again, this article came out on the day we were finishing up our gifting work when we were leaving Sacramento, October 13th. So they're predicting for the coming week above, let's see in the greens here, above average rainfall. And let's see, even in the deserts here, which are not projected to get much of this rain, if any,
still above normal,
are still getting above normal. So something is happening. Something is happening here. A wetter than average forecast for late October could dampen wildfires burning in Northern California and help ease drought conditions, according to the National Weather Service. The latest weather outlook for the latter part of this month calls for above normal precipitation in California with possible high elevation heavy snow in the Sierra Nevada and the Cascades. There's also potential for an atmospheric river. Okay.
You just got to throw that.
Can I just translate that to reality? There is also going to be an OR shift in the atmosphere, which is going to cause tremendous cloud formation due to the hydrogen bonding of water molecules, and they will be dropping a lot of precipitation on the area because there won't be any DOR sources inhibiting them. I just rewrote the article.
You should apply for a job at the LA Times.
I should, but they would never hire me. I never will last. There was something else I wanted to share in here. So it's kind of funny. They keep having to say, though, we are monitoring this and it would be above normal, but nothing earth shattering, said David King, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service's Bay Area office in Monterey. But this is interesting here. King pointed out that October is not normally a very wet month, so it wouldn't take a lot to lift it above normal. This is different than what they had been saying in previous years, where they're starting the water year on October 1st so that we feel like we're not getting enough rain. Like we had a really bad start to it.
Horrible start to the water.
But now they're admitting that there isn't any at that time of year anyway. So that's in order to downplay what's happening, but there's no downplaying this. We are going to be slammed. So let's see, there was something else. Oh, this is the part I found really funny. I have to share. Okay. It also follows an October outlook that showed California with equal chances of above average, near average, or below average precipitation temperatures. So basically every possibility.
Yes, every possibility that exists.
But we can't tell you which one. So that was my favorite part. Meteorology is hilarious.
Well, it would be hilarious if it wasn't so pathetic. But this map, another interesting thing about this map is that you'll notice the parts that are not getting it right here specifically. These are the parts that got the most during the monsoon season. So this is further evidence of the balancing out of weather systems. And just as you were saying earlier, the Pacific Northwest gets too much rain, basically, and the certain parts of the desert obviously get not enough. Right. This is about a reduction in what gets too much and an increase in what gets too little to balance out. That's what georestoration is all about.
In this case, I feel like everyone on the West Coast is getting maybe a little too much. There's nothing we can do about it. That we just gifted one city. This is obviously what is meant to be happening. But I think this will really destroy their drought propaganda.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It needs to be so blatant, so overt that no amount of propaganda can withstand it. And this amount of rain coming in this early and temperatures this cold, it destroys their propaganda.
Oh yeah, speaking of cold temperatures, we had a little snow flurry yesterday, and that's the earliest I've seen a snow flurry. It wasn't snow that was sticking, we had rain. So we'll get to that too. I'm just going to show you quickly.
It snowed just a little bit, and October 18th is, again, it's about a month early for typically we don't get snow until around Thanksgiving.
This is the 10-day outlook for Sacramento. And as you can see, it's rain, 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 rain. I mean, it's going to be off the hook there. And the ones that just say cloudy and no rain, this says 24% chance of rain. And what they do with the Weather Channel now is they've changed their percents. They're all in these like little incremental numbers. It used to just be by the fives, like 15, 20%. So when it goes below 25%, the icon doesn't show rain. When it goes above 25%, the icon shows rain.
That's
so
just their way of like, oh, it's not going to be raining.
It probably is what I'm saying.
It's definitely going to be. So just picture the icon there along with the three above it and the three below it.
And even past there, you have high percentages of rain coming up. So we're
There's
looking
some more
at
24% down there
yeah.
too.
So Sacramento is going to be doing very well, and not just Sacramento, all of Northern California. And even here in the South, we're not going to get as much, but it is Southern California. It's a different climate. We actually are more connected with this area, the Southwest area. So we're kind of trying to build up on Project Monsoon for this area, but we're also trying to get whatever we can out of the winter rains, because we can get a lot of rain in the winter in Southern California once the season progresses. Usually in October and November, it's only a little bit.
By the way, what you were talking about, when they changed how they do their percentages, that changed around the time of when CompVid began.
Oh,
so
right.
I wonder if that happens to be related.
Right. And you can go
Just
back
a
and
thought.
listen to our videos about computer virus 19, which was the actual thing that was going on when they started the COVID stuff for the humans. The AI was suffering from a great computer virus, which still has not been remedied. It will never be. They will be crippled forever. So to learn more about what's happened to them as a result of orgonite gifting, making the environment inhospitable to the parasitic entities, as well as some little bit of legal hocus pocus, what's happened to them, that they're losing citizens is what's happening. It doesn't matter what we're doing, as long as we're not part of their system, that hurts them.
It's a club and it's losing members.
It's losing members.
That's I guess the most simplistic way I can describe it.
So here are some nice pictures of clouds on October 17th in our area before rain, funnel shaped, because orgon energy creates a spiraling vortex.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. There is no reason to fear these clouds, these shapes.
What it is the OR vortex is so strong, it's spiraling up from the earth and into the sky, and it's taken with it all pollution away from the earth. And as you can see, there was no pollution here at all, but there's a little bit of water vapor, just a little bit of water vapor in the sky, enough to create this look. So when the vortex is spiraling through it, it's allowing, through the hydrogen bond, again, these molecules to come together, and they're spiraling up and away. So you see them spiral up and away, and then at the top, they form into clouds. So you can see in this one, it's more progressed. See the clouds forming out of it. This is the water molecules coming together. So they're being swept up and away from the earth by the vortex, and the energy field is also allowing them to coalesce into these clouds.
Bursting forth.
And so then, and there's that nice map. And also there was an article, you can come back to my blog and check out what I've been writing about, but I posted an article from the SF Gate about what they call snowleage, which is this beautiful fall foliage with snow, which doesn't happen very often in California, but because of the early snow in Northern California, we're getting these beautiful landscapes along the 395, which we also gifted, by the way. And yesterday morning, it was 32 degrees out, and it was rainy and beautiful. I took this through the window because it was so pretty. And there were snow flurries. So no sticking snow, but we saw our first snowflakes on
so beautiful.
October 18th this year.
Just makes me want coffee and Miles Davis.
That's the best. That's the best on a morning like that. So I think that's all I have to share. I'm going to stop the share. All right, so that's it. I mean, Sacramento gifting and results, it's amazing stuff.
And anyone who has bought from our shop has, in their own way, contributed to this project and other projects just like it, because we rely exclusively on your support to get the supplies and make the tower busters and go out there and do the work. And we can tell just by looking at the maps, we know exactly where it needs it. You seem to have an intuition for these things.
I know, and I know the next one too. I know the next one we're doing, and that one we might not be able to keep off the radar ahead of time. So you might get to hear about it beforehand, but I always know where to go.
We'll keep it under wraps as long as we can.
Yeah. And also whoever has donated to us, thank you so much, because those donations have helped immeasurably. You guys have supported us and you made Project Monsoon happen. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do it. It gets very expensive to make the TVs. Resin has gone up a lot, by the way, just like everything. Resin has gone up tremendously, like way more than other things. So thanks for your help with that.
Yes, and you've made Project Newsom happen as well.
Yes.
And we thank you for that. And Gavin Newsom does not thank you.
By the way, we didn't
who cares
raise
what he thinks.
We didn't raise the prices on our orgonite, by the way. So we want to try to keep the prices of our orgonite as low as possible so that you can enjoy it. And also, if you're a gifter, we have TVs as cheap as we can. And if you get more, they're cheaper. So if you want to do a lot of them, I recommend you make them yourself. If you want them from us, please ask me if you want a huge amount or more than is on the shop, because we'll give you a discount on that.
You can
too.
save a lot of money by buying in bulk, because we can't all be going out for $1,200 dinners at the French Laundry.
He's talking about Gavin Newsom again, for those who aren't in California know what this character does. But anyway, Gavin Newsom's vat of goo that he sleeps in every night is also pretty costly, and that's taking a lot of money from the taxpayers. But he needs to, resuscitate himself and
recharge,
go back to Valhalla to slumber and feed.
Get ready for another round of foisting anything fascist upon the people.
Well, this is why we gifted Sacramento. It's not just about the weather. This is about raising consciousness. And, I've heard some news lately about some things going on in the government regarding lower emissions for EMF and things like that. Stuff that I don't really have any take on that myself, because I'm not a member, I'm not a citizen, I'm not a part of it. And I don't think that reducing EMF to lower amounts is the answer. I think getting rid of it is the answer. So there's been news about that. I've been hearing about it from various people. And, I think that the reason that they're even addressing these things and that there have been victories as far as reducing emissions has been because of increased consciousness. So even though it hasn't gotten increased to the point where they drop out and aren't members and citizens anymore, they are aware that this is a problem. So, we're getting somewhere.
Certainly. But it's also important to remember that any solution that Babylon puts forth is generally just cosmetic. It's actually a non-solution. It's just there to impress simpletons by and large.
Well, yeah, so. and non-usage is the answer here. Not reducing, not 4G instead of 5G. 4G was bad, okay? If you think 5G is going to give you cancer quicker, well, okay, you maybe gained a couple years by using 4G instead, but why do you want cancer? Why does it have to end this way? Can't we just stop using this poison and stop killing ourselves? We don't use it. You don't need to use it.
And we're successful at our gifting because we don't use it, and exclusively because of that.
Yeah, and I will add another thing. I could go on and on about this issue of the problem of using cell phones and any EMF emitters. But I just finally read George Ritschl's book, which is all about gifting in Africa. And I would have read it sooner, but I think it was only available as an ebook for a long time. But somebody gave me a gift of this book and I really enjoyed it. And I think you would enjoy it too. He's not very scientific. He does a little bit of the mystical Don Croft stuff that I think has no place in his book. But it's a very, very interesting story and he did tremendous work. However, there are several incidents in his book where he had terrible things happen, like car accidents, bad stuff. His car literally flipping over. And he says during those times when these things happened, he doesn't even remember. His mind was gone during those moments. Like something interfered. And he said this in the book, that something interfered with it and he couldn't function. And then these terrible things happened while gifting in Africa. The reason for them, and I wish he knew this, we've interviewed him before years ago. And I asked him at the time, because he would email me from his iPhone. I said, how can you use that thing? Doesn't it hurt you? He did though. In the book, he always had a cell phone with him and he did all his navigation by GPS. So they always knew where he was.
Yes.
So what happened was, and I could tell you the reason for these blackouts, which he recognized as etheric interference, was because he took these things with him. If he hadn't done it, these things wouldn't have happened.
Now, this book was written in 2007. So this is before the smartphone even came out. So when these incidents were happening to him, he was using a dumb phone.
So you can't switch to a dumb phone and think it's the
just
answer.
as bad. It's just as bad. If it's causing that to happen.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the stuff we have today is worse, but that do not think in any way. If you think that old stuff is better for you, please reject the notion. Because
you may get cancer a little later. You know, you might get a few more years, but your consciousness will still be impaired. And it's not worth it. But I do understand the need to have it with you in case of emergency. It's got to be off and wrapped in foil so they cannot track you. We had no interference on this gifting. And I can tell you in Silicon Valley, we had horrible interference the whole time. We didn't take the phone with us when we gifted. We had it off, but they knew we were doing it and they knew we were there. All our plans were out in the open and I blogged it every day. And, you know, you'll see a difference. So if you're out there gifting, check it out. Try not telling anybody you're going to do it. Keep it off the radar and don't take anything with you. If you're in your own city or near home, just leave the phone at home if you can. If not, off and wrapped, no GPS. Never use GPS. AAA has maps for free if you're a member. I recommend getting a AAA membership, especially if you're a gifter, because if there's a problem on the road, you're going to need their help. And it can happen and they will tow you and help you and they're great. And it's cheap and you can get all your paper maps for free.
I think the old military saying is leave nothing to the enemy. And any gifter, any respectable gifter will know that when you're gifting, it's all your enemy. Everything, the cops, the people, everyone out there is the enemy. If they knew what you were doing, they would even, best you can hope for is complete neutral reaction about it. But their parasites don't like it, and they will be controlled to lash out at you. So,
and remember, every user is under mind control.
That's what
even
I'm
if
saying.
You're a user and you're listening to this, you are slightly under mind control. If you're listening to this, you're obviously intelligent enough to know that there's something else out there besides what the mainstream says. But if you're a user, you are going to be hit with that energy. So you might be cognizant at the moment, but something could happen like what happened to George Ritchell, where all of a sudden your mind just goes blank and something bad happens. So just be careful and mindful. And I understand the need to use a cell phone sometimes, but please use it mindfully when you do.
Leave nothing to the enemy, any advantage you can get. Thank you so much for listening. Our website is www.thekembo.com. You can check out all of our links. We did a little bit of revamping.
Yeah, there's a little rearranging. If you go to the Orgone Energy section, I made it way easier to see our how-to videos. So if you want to make TBs and pyramids, the videos are big and easy to see at the bottom of the page now. So check it out.
We now have a new checkout, an additional checkout option. You're always able to use credit cards, but now we've made it a little,
it's much easier now,
easier to understand, and the process should be a lot smoother.
Yeah. And you don't have to use PayPal anymore. PayPal sent me an email saying that they were going to force everyone to log in, even use the credit card payment. So I found a different way of doing things, and you don't have to log into anything. So when you come, if you want to buy from us and support our work, you'll see a very easy checkout, much simplified from before. And also there's a donate button on the front page. We very gratefully accept your donations. If you want to donate by check, even better, because then PayPal doesn't take a piece of it. So thank you so much for supporting us and for your donations.
Yes,
if you like what we do, we really appreciate it. Every little bit helps.
We can't stress that enough.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for that. We also have videos on how to make your own, both a tutorial for the Towerbusters and for the small ziggurat pyramids. We've got an FAQ. We've got all sorts of information out there. Please come check it out. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you again next time.